America is home to 33 million small businesses, the beating heart of communities across the country.
And proof that the American dream is still alive.
This is a show about those dreamers and doers and the communities they serve.
Their real life stories.
Their struggles and successes.
Their grit, determination, and passion.
And the people who fight
to keep their American dream alive.
I'm Alfredo Ortiz.
I'm Elaine Parker.
And it's time for another episode of Main Street Matters,
America's small business megaphone. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. I'm Elaine Parker, the president of the Job Creators Network Foundation, and today we're joined by Robert Netzly. Robert's the founder and CEO of the Inspire Impact Group, and he's also the author of the new book, Biblically Responsible Investing, on Wall Street as It Is in Heaven. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Elaine. Good to be here.
Well, tell me a little bit about Inspire Impact Group and what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, the Inspire Impact Group is really a family of companies focused on faith-based investing. So among other things, we're the world's largest provider of faith-based ETFs. So really what that means is we're helping people to invest in companies that are aligned with biblical values. We avoid investments in companies that are doing things like selling abortion drugs or distributing pornography or engaged in radical LGBT activism, things of that nature. And so that's in a nutshell what we do. How I got into this was a little bit of a long, winding road. I went to school to be a fourth grade teacher, so God has had different plans for my life. But I did get into the investment industry at Wells Fargo Private Client Group down in Carmel, California, beautiful little coastal town, if you've ever been there. And really life was good. And then I stumbled across this whole concept of biblically responsible investing, where you're looking at not just the financial aspect of a portfolio, but the moral aspect of what these companies are actually doing to turn a profit. So I had never thought about something like that before and was curious. So here I go looking inside of my own portfolio, my clients' portfolios, and really I just, the Holy Spirit just gripped my heart on this issue, because here I was, president of our local pro-life pregnancy center at the time, and I owned 3 stocks of companies manufacturing abortion drugs. And this truth hits me upside the head that every time that young lady goes to Planned Parenthood, has an abortion, I just made money on that transaction. I literally profited from that transaction, and I'm recommending all my clients to do the same thing. And then you go down the big laundry list of all the other issues in the portfolio, and frankly, within 2 weeks, I couldn't do my job with a clean conscience. Didn't know what I was going to do, if I could even stay in the business, this industry. So I went home, told my wife, hey, honey, here's what I found. I think God is calling us somewhere else. And she's like, well, we got 2 babies and a mortgage, so what's the plan? And so we just started praying. And long story very short, God called me to leave the bank, start this independent practice that just focused on what we're doing now. This was 11 years ago, and 2011, a little over 11 years since we started Inspire Investing, a little longer since I got out of Wells Fargo. And it's been a wild ride. As we have gotten into this work, we're seeing really God move. And so I started with nothing in a laptop, and now we're managing over $3.5 billion in assets, all according to faith-based investing principles. And it really is not a testament to my pedigree. Again, I went to school to be a fourth grade teacher in a California State University system. But God is doing something amazing, as millions and millions of people around the country and around the world are realizing that they've had their money in things that are deeply contradictory to their personal values. And it doesn't have to be that way. We can just do a little more work and invest differently. And that's how we got here.
Well, I feel like there's been a big shift in values of the American public. And so I think you have a captive audience to reach out to and to market to. I feel like things just went too far. You've got everything moving in these directions that are just contrary to the American dream, the American spirit, a lot of American values that everyday ordinary Americans hold. So I think you have a very captive audience. But how do you reach them? Because there's been this big push for ESG, environmental social governance investing. Companies are doing it. your average investor, doesn't know exactly what all the stocks they're investing, that their financial planner is investing in. They don't know. So how do you reach them to first educate them? Because you have to explain the illness before you can give them the cure.
Right. Yeah, and that is the number one job for us every day is awareness, really helping people to become aware of what it's like. I was a financial planner, right? And very devoted pro-life Christian. And I was totally oblivious. So if I was oblivious, certainly, the average Joe and Sally out there at the 401k, how can we expect them to be any more educated than I was? And so it really is a push for awareness. And there back when I got started in this, there wasn't really a whole lot of tools or resources available to find out what was going on. Maybe somebody mentioned this to you and you're like, oh, gee, I wonder what's inside of my portfolio. Well, how am I even going to find out? Right? My financial planner doesn't know, have the tools or what these companies are doing. How do I find out what a company's involved in? It's very difficult. We put a free tool online. So to really solve this problem, to bring transparency to investing, it's called Inspire Insight. I talk about this in my book. And how to go about this whole process. But the first step is just to learn what you've got. So if you go to inspireinsight.com or to our other website, inspireinvesting.com, either way, you can find your way there. And there's a free tool. You can put your ticker symbols in of any stock, mutual fund, or ETF that you own, and it'll show you any time of the day or night without a login, just right there on the screen, all the good, bad, and the ugly of what you're invested in. So such as you've got this mutual fund in your 401k, it owns this stock, and then on this date gave this much money to Planned Parenthood. That sort of granularity with the source link that you can go and verify. Don't take our word for it, and all sorts of things on there. And again, we're not the moral police here. We have our values and our convictions. I'm happy to talk about those, but we do believe that every investor, no matter where you're coming from, should really understand what you own. And look, maybe you're not a Christian like I am, but maybe you are pro-life, or maybe you don't like human trafficking. Right? There's a lot of issues going on that I think most people would not want to be making money on. Did you know that Meta, the company of Facebook, has been making money off of human traffickers? They sell ads for human traffickers in Africa and the Middle East. They've known this for years. They've been investigated by Congress and all sorts of things, and they still do it. So companies like that, I mean, they frankly don't deserve a place in someone's portfolio. And there's plenty of other great companies to make money and to grow a wonderful, return to meet your retirement needs or pay for your kids' college or whatever you're trying to do. There's a lot of other ways to go about it, and you don't have to sacrifice returns to invest this way. And so we're here to really spread that message, open people's eyes, and then show them the really simple path to just, instead of buying these companies and these funds from the secular companies that are, working against your deeply held values, just invest in other companies and in other fund companies that have that share your values, right? Are actually going to advocate for the things that you care about with your money. That just makes sense.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you have an audience that would hear this message and be receptive to the message. We all know about the big companies that have gotten a ton of press for, Bud Light, Target. Some of those are the companies I can think of. Disney. I think that they have really paid the price. At Job Creators Network. So we always talk about Bernie Marcus founded us. He's the co-founder of the Home Depot. And what he always believed is that small business owners were the most trusted voice out there. And that as a business owner, as a small business owner, you have a responsibility to educate your employees about how policies impact your business and ultimately their paychecks. It's not about saying, hey, vote for this guy or vote for that guy or invest in that or don't invest in that. It's truly about having a stake in the game. And so I remember when Disney kind of stepped out on this parental law. I live in Florida. So Governor DeSantis passed this parental law giving parents the power, basically. I mean, to not have, sexualized issues talked about in the kindergarten classrooms, up until third grade.
Wow.
and it seems pretty common sense. And Disney took this big stand, that they were going to take this to court and fight it to the end of time. And I thought, do your shareholders agree with you? And in the end, they didn't. They absolutely didn't agree with him. So when you don't get that kind of Bud Light, Target, Disney media spectacle, and have people outside picketing, I actually think this is much more powerful, because you get 60, 100 people outside picketing outside the company, gets a little bit of news, right? You get people to stop investing in your company and move their money. I think that's huge. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that says wake up, because we're taking our dollar. When people vote with their dollars, it's massive.
Mhm, mhm. And we're finding that increasingly more these days, where you're right. Big companies have really acted with, well, they think they've acted with impunity, and just think they can get involved in any sort of ideological fanfare they want to, whether it's something like you just mentioned with Disney and that whole situation, or it's Bud Light, or it's Target with their extremely in your face, tuck friendly bathing suits, all that stuff for kids, that whole rigmarole. They think they can just do these things and there's not going to be consequences. And, they could put up with the boycotters on the street or some angry social media people from the dregs of West Virginia or whatever whoever they think they're dealing with here. But the truth is, it is everywhere. People care all over America. Most of the country doesn't agree with these things that they're doing. And we've been warning companies about that for years, that these chickens are going to come home to roost, and they are. And so with shareholder engagement, certainly where we spend our money counts. We don't need to be spending money at places that are just again, there's other places than Target to spend your money, for instance.
Right.
Investing in Target, investing in Amazon, investing in these different companies is a whole other level, because not only are you participating with them, you're actually profiting with them, right? And they're using literally using your dollars as a shareholder to push these agendas. And what we found that we're doing increasingly more of is this engagement where we're speaking biblical truth to corporate power through the investment channel. And this is what the liberal far left has done for a long time, very effectively, is not just show up on the steps with picket signs, but they're actually in the boardrooms for decades now. And we on the conservative end of the spectrum, certainly on the faith-based end of the spectrum, have been completely absent. And is it no wonder why we're in the situation we are with corporate America? So, for instance, several years ago, the first time we got involved in something like this, we had noticed that Costco had started giving money to some gay pride parades. So this is years ago. We had been investors in Costco. We're like, this is a problem. They're using our money, giving it to these gay pride parades. That's a violation. We're going to kick them out of the portfolio. But I'm like, why don't I just reach out to them before we do that? And so, I left a message on their 800 number for their investor relations, sent an email off to their generic inbox, and I thought that was it. Okay, let's move on with our work. Well, 2 hours later, I got a call back from their chief financial officer, and he was in an airport getting ready to get on a plane. And he's like, I got this email from our team about gay pride parades and Christians and something, like, what is going on? And not a normal email that he would have gotten. And so we had this conversation. He got on his plane. We had an ongoing conversation over the next few weeks, where I was able to explain who we were and who we represent, faith-based investors. And we'd really like you not to give our money as shareholders to these sort of things. And he looked into it and found the donations and verified all of that. And at the end, he said, we don't have any desire to be involved in, controversial, like, contentious social issues. So I just issued a company-wide memorandum that, like, no more giving money to gay pride parades or other contentious social issues. And I hung up the phone, and I thought, well, we should do this more often. This is amazing. And so since then, we've been involved with many companies. Exxon and Chevron have stopped giving money to Planned Parenthood and other abortion-related philanthropies. Just recently, in the past few weeks, you may have seen on the news again with Costco, where they have made the wonderful decision to not sell the abortion drug mifepristone in their over 550 pharmacies because of our efforts with them over the past year and a half working on that. And so many people joining us in that coalition. So we can really have impact, especially right now when the tide really is with us, the wind is at our back. Common sense is starting to come back into favor, and we just need to make sure we're being intentional. But here's the dirty secret is that if you have your money in a fund in your 401k or IRA or what have you, with a company like BlackRock through their iShares funds or Vanguard or American funds or Fidelity funds, or pick a company. Most people don't realize that those companies get to vote on your behalf for all these corporate initiatives on the shareholder proxies, and they don't have to ask you your opinion. And they don't ask you your opinion. They're voting all of these things. So there's $22.4 trillion in America that is owned by church members. That's half of the investment assets in the country are owned by church members in this country. And yet, how much of that is actually being voted and using to influence corporations towards biblical conservative values? Hardly any of it today. And so we need to take back that control, realize we're just giving our votes. Like, would you give somebody from the opposing government party your presidential vote, like Act Blue or something? Or would you give them your vote for president? We would never do that. But we're doing that with our money by investing in these other fund companies. So that's why our company, Inspire Investing, is here, and others, colleagues in the industry, to really speak biblical truth to corporate power and to represent shareholders in the way that, particularly faith-based shareholders and others with conservative values, in the way that they would want themselves to be represented. So it really is an exciting time to be doing this, and we're seeing some massive wins.
Well, some people argue that mixing, faith and finance is kind of risky or even exclusionary. How do you respond to some of those criticisms?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people have, I think it's this idea that good guys finish last. We just assume if we do the right thing, we're going to take some hits for it and maybe not do as well as everybody else. We don't find that at all. We're very convicted in our belief and experience over the past number of years that investing with good values and good returns are not mutually exclusive. Now, just because you invest with biblical values doesn't guarantee you better returns either, right? You're not going to have some blessing from God that you're always going to do better than everybody else. Nothing ridiculous like that. But the fact is that you can invest in some of the best companies, largest companies in the world that are not involved in any of these harebrained ideas, and they do very well and build a very good portfolio for yourself. And the empirical data shows that. Our largest fund is the Inspire 500 ETF. The ticker is PTL. So it's similar to the S&P 500, the large cap index for American stocks, except we don't own any of the Magnificent Seven: Netflix, Amazon, Google, all of those. And yet PTL is outperforming the S&P 500 over the past year, and doing so very well. And the fees on that fund are lower than the largest S&P 500 fund in the country, the SPY. So not only can we provide a lower fee for an investor, we're also providing a better return over the past year. And you don't have to invest in these companies that are, destroying the way of life that you hold dear and contradicting your values. So really, it's just a matter of picking our heads up and paying attention and then doing some good work on the investment front, and you can do just fine.
I thought I read online when I was looking at your company, there's an Inspire Impact Score. What is that, and how is it measured?
Yeah, the Inspire Impact Score is our rules-based methodology for how we rank companies according to biblical values. So it goes from negative 100 to positive 100. Anything below 0, we never invest in. So they've got some sort of issue with, they sell abortion drugs or pornography, or there's human trafficking in the supply chain, or any of these number of issues that are exclusionary issues for us. We have, I think, over 70,000 tickers with impact scores right now live on Inspire Insight. You can go and see that at inspireinsight.com and see them for free. So anything less than 0, we don't invest in. The lower the score means the more bad things they're involved in, right? So how deep can they dig that hole? And then on the other side, for the 85% of U.S. companies that pass all of the exclusionary criterion. So overwhelmingly majority of companies in this country and internationally for that matter do not violate any of those exclusionary criterion, even the most rigorous screening. So 85% or so move on to round two, where we're looking for the to assign positive points, right? We want to find not just the not bad companies, but we want to find those companies that are actually acting as blessings to their customers, their communities, the workplace, and the world. The things that they make are, if you make toothpaste or you make something that cures cancer, those are two different things, right? We want to find those really inspiring companies that are producing things that are just really enhancing human flourishing. They treat their workers, incredibly fair. The communities rejoice to have them, with their factories or other, storefronts or what have you in their place. And so there's several dozen categories of positive points along various, again, how much of a blessing they are with their products and whatnot. And the more categories that they score positive relative to their industry peer groups, we assign positive points all the way up to a potential positive 100 if there was ever, a perfect company. And we seek to invest in those most inspiring, most positive, most biblically aligned companies, and build our low cost indexes out of that. So that's our methodology. And again, all those scores and then all the underlying data with intense granularity is all available for free on our website, inspireinsight.com.
So I talked to you a little bit about Job Creators Network, small business. We represent small businesses. There's 33 million small business owners in this country. How can small business owners align their operations with biblical principles without sacrificing competitiveness?
That's a great question. Well, first of all, you don't need to get into all of the DEI pressure and, picking suppliers based on the color of their skin or their assigned genders or anything of that nature, right? Like you should focus on putting your head down and doing a really good job at what you do, and hire people based on merit and provide a good product at a good price to customers who appreciate it, and run a good business, maximize your margins in that context. And just that's the number one job of business, right? Is to produce something of value to people that creates value for the shareholders and use the owner, and not be blown about by the various forces that would seek to kind of have you cave into ideological demands. You don't have to do that. And there's a lot of investors out there in the public markets and private markets that want to support companies that don't cave to those pressures. So that's number one. Number two, you can look into, in our sphere, you look at your 401k plan. What kind of funds are you putting in your 401k? If it's with BlackRock or what have you, then those funds are probably working against the things that you hold dear, and you're pouring your life, blood, sweat, and tears into this business to put a culture and values into your company, only to have it, unwound through activist efforts with the people you're giving your money to. So be savvy about that. Where are you getting your advice to set up that plan or to plan for your, multi-generational approach to your business if you've got successors or what have you? Think about those things. Don't just take the Wall Street, the big Wall Street firms' advice for it. There's some good people in some of those firms, but a lot of them are just drinking the Kool-Aid and haven't thought about this deeply. And we just need to be intentional, right? So those are two things I would say for the small businesses out there. There's some great resources for other faith-aligned businesses. I would encourage you to look at C12. Is a phenomenal network that we're a part of for CEOs to get equipped to build great businesses for a greater purpose. And Alliance Defending Freedom is also a wonderful partner for us that have helped us to set up HR policies in a way that can navigate the very tricky legal landscape, especially if you're in a liberal state. It can be tricky to do these things, and they've got the resources there for you. So I highly encourage ADF and C12 as resources along the way.
That's good advice. Do you generally, do you see small businesses as kind of naturally more aligned with faith-driven values compared to some of these large corporations? Of course, outside of the ones we've seen in the news for some of their bad decisions, but outside of that, generally, do you see small businesses as just more aligned there?
I think it's easier for a small business to have that conservative alignment. I mean, the grassroots in this country are conservative,
Mhm.
And small businesses, that's the grassroots. When you get into these very large, multinational corporations, they're typically run by the more coastal elite, Ivy League, sort of crowd, which tends to be obviously more liberal. And so I think that's really the difference is who's running the ship. You do have massive companies, and we all know about the Hobby Lobbies and Chick-fil-A's of the world. There's also many publicly traded companies that you might not have heard of. For example, Coca-Cola Consolidated is the largest distributor for Coca-Cola, and it is explicitly Christian. You go to their website, and right there in big letters, it says, "We exist for the glory of God." They do a bunch of things that are very out front and faith forward, and they're a publicly traded company, a large one. So, and there's many others like them, but it is I think more common among small business owners because they're run by people with those kind of Main Street values, right? Traditional American family, faith, freedom sort of values. So that's a really, as a small business owner, I mean, it really is a precious thing about a small business is that you can have such a direct influence as a principal or as a leadership team on the culture of your organization, which becomes much harder, the bigger that you get.
The left is so good at organizing and putting pressure on companies to adopt policies that are the antithesis of biblical values. Whether it's people picketing in front of the store, to not shopping there, to like you said, they have figured out how to get them planted in boardrooms. How do we, as conservatives, how do we figure out how to get inside those boardrooms? Because that's really where these decisions are being made and influenced, and in some cases, ignoring their own shareholders and what their shareholders' values are. How do you think we get into those boardrooms?
Yeah. Well, we have to, and that's a long game, and we've got to really get our bench deeper there. Honestly, I mean, and that's an educational perspective. My family, we love classical Christian education and higher learning, and you've got a lot of movement going on. We see kids coming out of government schools, starting a whole different track, going to schools like Hillsdale and New St. Andrews out here in Idaho, and we're seeing some really phenomenal graduates coming out in the spheres of in legal and political backgrounds and what have you, business degrees that are going to really fill the bench for some of these companies. And I think a couple things that make me optimistic towards that end are, number one, these boards are under intense pressure, who have like Target, etc., because they have made such dramatically, ridiculously foolish decisions, and they're losing money, and some of them are losing their jobs and some of their positions, and the same mantra of doing engaging in this very extreme pro-trans agendas or whatever else they may have said would be a good thing for business because everybody wants you to do that is clearly false. And so that whole narrative is changing, uh, combined with the federal government now and their pushback against DEI and ESG and all of that sort of thing creates a very good legal framework and just sort of gets things back to neutral, right? I mean, just get things back to neutral. Let's just focus on running good companies that produce good products that help people and not get involved in all these things. And that just provides a wonderful environment for this new crop of, and really, I think, a new crop of young professionals who are tracking towards those kind of board seat business leadership, and they have very conservative values. I mean, you've seen the statistics of the younger generations and how much more conservative they're becoming every generation, which is because they've seen it. They've seen the train wreck firsthand of what happened when things went too far off the other side. So I'm optimistic about that. It is a long game. There's a lot of embedded, folks that are just going to be in those boardrooms till they die. But until then, we can engage like we have, and God's given us some really amazing victories, and I expect that we will have some more.
Well, I mean, to some extent, as I mentioned, our founder, Bernie Marcus, what he wanted us to do was help small business owners and business owners in general take the time to explain how policies impact their employees and the future of the company. I worry that all of this turmoil will stifle that, because these are conversations that should be had. These are conversations where, if there is a policy that's going to be passed that is going to be detrimental to your company, a regulation, a law, a tax, whatever it is, but detrimental to your company, and your employees are going to lose their job, whether you're a publicly traded company or not, you have a responsibility to communicate that information to your employees, and inform your employees and your shareholders of the problems with this particular policy. And I just I worry that, and I've seen it firsthand, is that all of this activism, and primarily from the left, because they're so good at it. I mean, they really are. They're so skilled at it. They're so well funded, to do it. The conservatives are not well funded to do this. So it really takes someone like you to take a stand. But I have small business owners who want to have these conversations with their employees. They're afraid to. And no corporations want to do these conversations at all, because they don't want to be accused of being, political. But they have no problem talking about DEI. They have no problem, making some of the decisions, Bud Light made with who their spokesperson was going to be, or the types of products that Target carries. But interestingly enough, now that Target has abandoned DEI policies, the left is boycotting them, and their sales are literally tanking. Their CEOs had to step down. So how do we continue having the right conversations, which is simply just, this policy is going to hurt your job. It's going to hurt our share price. It's going to hurt, it's going to hurt your job. It's going to make us have to reduce our workforce. These are important conversations to have.
Right. Yeah. And I would say that the issue at hand is not that talking about policy or politics is wrong, in a business context, because absolutely these are business policies, and they should be discussed, and people should be educated on that, and know what the effect is on the business. The thing is that the policies that are just ideologically driven, just to promote something that really is irrelevant to business, right? Business has been taken captive as a Trojan horse for this radical leftist Marxist ideology, CRT, DEI, all the things, and they just saw their opportunity with business, because it can be influential to push forward those things. We need to get back to just common sense. Like, look, those, if it's not a business concern, like those, let's debate those in the public square. Let's debate those, in politics. I mean, I shouldn't be worried about if my boss thinks what my boss thinks about traditional marriage or not, and if that's going to, if he finds out I believe in traditional marriage and he disagrees with me, that I'm going to be losing my job, or I'm going to be passive for a promotion. Like that has no place in a workplace. Tax policy, employment related issues. I mean, other things that affect businesses and employees. Certainly, business owners should be educating employees on these things, and should be advocating. I think it's just common sense to be advocating with their employees to vote against some of these radical things that are trying to shove this other stuff down their throat, right? Just to protect them from, stay out of those, keep these things out of our business, so we can just focus on our work. You have a healthier workplace, you have healthier employees, happier employees, a more safe, tolerant workplace, ironically, and you're able to just do your job and, provide for your family. So I think we need to move the Overton window in that respect, right? And one of the things is we're sort of scared of the thought police. If we talk about these things in the public sphere, it's going to be, what's going to happen. We just need some brave souls to step out, which we're seeing, and to start doing this in their companies. Show that, that the emperor has no clothes, that, behind the curtain is just an old man, not a big fiery wizard. Like this, we need to just do the thing and show the world that this is the right path, and watch employees and businesses flourish because of it. And just, again, get back to common sense. This is how business used to be run, 50 years ago, not that long ago. And we've just gotten so far off the plot. It would be funny if it wasn't so heinous and insidious. So I would just encourage business owners to get a spine and be bold and be brave. A great book to read on that is Emotional Sabotage by Joe Rigney. A great little book I've read recently on that topic. So I encourage you to just be brave.
Well, what I found is that you're right. The grassroots are conservative across the country, but I've also found that the voices of the left are so loud because of how good they are at organizing that sometimes conservatives are nervous to step out. And so people like yourself, other conservatives that I've seen speak out publicly on values, faith, family values, have really made a difference. And I think we saw that shift in the November election. We saw obviously conservatives come out in big droves to vote their values. We also saw the Hispanic vote move in a record-breaking number for Republicans. And it was based on faith, family, and values and the economy. And that shift, like I said, you have a very captive audience. It's continuing to get that word out and help people understand how they can make their voices heard with their finances.
Absolutely. The wind is at our back. Our movement is ascendant. Now's the time to step out in faith and really help others to have the same kind of courage, because now is the time. Right? Now is the time.
Well, I would like you to tell everybody how they can learn more about your company and also buy your book.
Yeah, the book is Biblically Responsible Investing on Wall Street as It Is in Heaven. It's available now from Canon Press. And I encourage you to read that if you have any interest in this whole biblically responsible investing movement. It really is exciting. About some behind the scenes detailed stories of these conversations with heads of massive businesses and how they have had their decisions changed by faith-based investors from our advocacy. Tell the story, all the details of how I kind of got out of Wells Fargo and started this, and then a lot of the theological to sort of biblical foundations for how we go about investing with biblical values and what scriptures we lean on there. Even an appendix on Bitcoin for all of you crypto enthusiasts. And is Bitcoin biblical? Read the book and find out. So I encourage you to find that from Canon Press. And then everything Inspire, you can find at inspireinvesting.com. We've got a lot going on there. We've got over 40 offices around the country with Christian financial advisors that are eager to give you biblically sound financial advice for your life. We have our ETFs, which I've mentioned here already. Our technology that is free to use for anybody. So lots there, inspireinvesting.com. And I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Robert. It was just great to meet you and learn about what you're doing. I appreciate everything that you're doing. And thank you all for taking the time to tune in to Main Street Matters, America's small business megaphone. Main Street Matters is part of the Salem Podcast Network. New episodes debut every Wednesday and Friday. You can subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast from, and we'll be back soon with another episode. Bye for now.